There we go. No, it wasn't muted. It had switched the inputs for some reason. I don't know why because I never switched the inputs, but that's okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Anyway, welcome to Tiger Talks tonight. We've got our good friend Discoliz back. How's it going, Liz?
It's going well. Hello.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, that was weird. At Streamlabs weirdly switched my inputs. Remember I was telling you about that before? We were just talking about that things will just randomly switch inputs for no reason. Anyway, so welcome to episode 3 of Tiger Talks. Tonight's our book club, our Harry Tower series, because that is definitely won out over Dark Potter because it's so much more fun. And brings so many more hilarious images to mind. So, real quick though, before we start, so if I sound more nasally than usual, I have a little bit of congestion going on. But interesting enough, so I took a cough drop just before we started, and I've never seen cough drops that have motivational messages on the wrappers before. So this one says, put a little strut in it. That's one. And then it's yours for the taking. That's the other one. You've got it in you. And take charge and mean it. So...
Wow, what brand is this?
These are Halls. So, I mean, these are like the main brand. They're really coming through with, I don't know what. Like, is this a Snapple thing here? What's going on here?
Fortune cookie? Make you feel better when you're sick.
I mean, I guess so. Anyway, so let's see. So, if there's anybody new in who isn't familiar with what we do here, I have never read the Harry Potter series before, and Liz has never read the Dark Tower series before, so we made an agreement since they're both 7 books long. I would read Harry Potter series, she would read the Dark Tower series, and then since they both have 7 books, after each books we would then get on and discuss them in their various ways that they work, things you like, don't like, all that stuff. So we both just finished the second books in our series, which was The Chamber of Secrets for me and The Drawing of the Three for you, right? Yeah, there you go. So as always, guest first, so why don't you jump in, things you thought about the book, maybe a little synopsis or whatever, and then we'll trade off.
So, I loved this book. I liked the first one. The first one was enjoyable.
Okay.
But this one really hooked me. At the very start. Just dove right into it. It picks up basically exactly where it leaves off in the first book, but the direction is completely different than I thought it was going to go into, and completely different setting than the first book. So the first book's very heavy Western, a journey, a lot of mythical witches and demons and that kind of stuff happening. This one, he ends up, I don't even know how you describe it, but there's 3 doors for 3 different people that he has to interact with, and when you open the door, he is able to basically go into their mind, and he can control them, he can take over their thoughts, he can talk to them in their thoughts, and I did not see that coming whatsoever.
Yeah.
That was a complete curveball, but the first time it happened, I was just blown away by it. I was like, what? That's what the doors are? He's going into his mind? And just such a good concept for a book. Another thing that happened right at the beginning that I wasn't expecting is that he's a gunslinger. He's your main character. The very beginning of the book, he loses his 2 right fingers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a startle right from the start, and he's sick pretty much the whole book because of those lobstrosities.
Right. That's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so there's these lobstrosity monsters that I definitely want to talk about, but he gets injured right at the start, and so the whole book he's injured and not doing well, and having to go into these people's minds and bodies and accomplish tasks, which we'll get into. But in his world, whatever real world is his world, he's dying essentially.
Yeah.
And so that's another part of the plot, is he's having to accomplish these tasks in the world that we're familiar with, which is New York in I believe it's the 80s, right?
Yeah, yeah.
for both part of it. Like, there's different time periods as well.
There's
So
there's different time periods, but I feel like the 80s is the main part of it,
yeah,
I guess.
Eddie's I think is the
Mm-hmm.
80s, and having to basically get medicine from New York in order to treat himself in his world to kind of make it through the story, which is super cool. So yeah, I mean, I definitely want to go more in depth, but that's the main gist is
All
having
right.
to collect the three people, which are the drawing of the three, which is the three tarot cards that were in the first book.
Right, right.
He has to go collect those three people, and he's on his way to the tower.
It's a pretty good, I think, overview. I remember, same thing. I remember when reading the series, it's so vastly different from the first book. I was like, oh, this is so different.
Yeah,
And I mean, in a good way, because yeah,
yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
the first book is definitely like a western, and then the second book definitely kind of it builds on that, but it goes in a very different direction. I think the second book is arguably where the story like really starts. So yeah, I
Yeah, if
would
you're not
agree.
hooked after the second book, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I don't know how.
That's a good point. Yeah, if you're like, oh, I don't like the second one, it's like you're probably not gonna like the rest of it. Then, to be honest, if you
Right.
don't. Oh, Clara, you got to bounce. No worries, Clara. We will think of you in your absence. Don't worry.
Bye, Clara.
Um, so,
I like. I didn't know that. Professor said I didn't know that Bean John Malkovich took that idea, but I've seen that movie and I can see
oh,
that.
yeah, I could see that too. Yeah, I didn't know that either. So that's a fun little tidbit there. Thanks for sharing that, Professor. He also said that since he's read both series, he plans to judge us both immensely for all the opinions that we both have.
He was going to judge
Mm,
us
you're gonna judge
immensely,
us, yeah.
regardless.
Anyway, right? Okay,
Good job.
so I read The Chamber of Secrets. I also liked this one more than the first book, but there were still some not issues. There were just some funny things. I am absolutely making that up. I just realized a loose coincidence in the plot. Why did you say true fact then? Like, why would you just lie like
Can't believe
that?
what you read on the internet.
I'm gonna have to like ban you or something if you weren't a moderator. Um,
Demote.
yeah, I'll demote you from moderator. He is a liar. I did like this. I did like the Chamber of Secrets more than the first book, but there were still some things that I guess bothered me from a storytelling point of view, but nothing like too bad. I mean, nothing too bad that maybe not enjoyed. I still liked it. I still like it. Like, I still want to read more of them. Um,
Right.
but I guess basic overview of the plot: Harry goes back to school after some hilarious hijinks at the Dursleys' house with a new character called Dobby, who I don't like him.
I was
I
going to
don't like
ask.
him at all. Don't find him
That's
very
all my question.
annoying. I remember finding him very annoying when watching the movies too. I was like, I don't like this thing. Can it please stop talking? I think it's mainly its voice that I don't like, and because I saw the movies before I read the books, I imagine his voice like it is in the movies, which I don't like it. If anyone has ever watched Adventure Time, um, it reminds me very much of Lemon Grab's voice. It's not exactly the same, and it's not the same voice actor, but it's similar enough that I'm like, ah. Dobby's the HP Universe adoring fan. Yeah, I would agree with that actually. So anyway, but he does make his way back to school after that, and then he has a run-in with what is his name? Lucius Malfoy? Is that his name? Yeah. I mean, he
Right.
doesn't have a run-in with him, but
Oh,
like
yeah, the father.
they come in contact with each other in the the store place. Um, and like basically like I mean through the book like it starts out with like kids becoming petrified and whatnot, and everyone not sure what's happening, and then there's this talk of this thing called the Chamber of Secrets, and it's this whole thing about the chamber being open and there being an air and everything like that, and then Harry finds a book that talks back to him in a way and shows him like memories and whatnot, and
A diary.
yeah, it's a diary. Yeah, that's it. Diary. That's the word I was looking for. Is a diary. Tom Riddle's diary. Also, for anyone watching, I mean, I'm gonna spoil everything. So hope you've read it. And then
We've had plenty of time.
yeah, it's been out for years. Um, And then there's a lot of stuff with the ghosts, which I did really like. I liked all the stuff with the ghosts, with the nearly headless Nick and his birthday party, so I thought that was really fun. And then eventually they find the Chamber of Secrets, and thanks to Moaning Myrtle, they're able to get their way down there. And he battles a giant basilisk, and then we find out, oh no, Tom Riddle's really Voldemort, which, I mean, like, yeah, that's kind of telegraphed, I feel like. I'm like, yeah, I probably, like, if I hadn't, even if I hadn't seen the movie, I'm like, I think I would have saw that coming. And it turns out that he was working through Ginny Weasley to, like, petrify kids and do all this bad stuff and everything, and then Harry's able to stab the diary with the tooth from the basilisk, and then he frees Dobby, and I thought that was kind of silly, but I also liked it, because I'm like, I don't really like slaves, so that's pretty good. Hey, Felipe, how are you doing? Howdy to you.
That's my friend Felipe.
Oh, right. Oh, I forgot all about Gilderoy Lockhart. Oh, yeah, and he's the professor of the dark arts, or defense against the dark arts. And, I mean, it's pretty, I was telling Fly Little Yum Yum that, like, I like his character, but I think I like his character because of Kenneth Branagh. Because, that's the only one where I imagine him just like in the movie. I imagine him just looking like Kenneth Branagh. And Kenneth Branagh did such a great job with that role that I couldn't not just imagine that in my head when I was reading it. So because of that, I'm like, I kind of like him, even though he's very obviously a liar. And I don't know how no one picked up on that he was a liar the entire time. Like, how did he ever get hired? I don't know how. I don't see how he's fooling everybody. And then he gets and then he loses his memory, which is pretty good comeuppance for him. Excuse me. Since he was apparently doing that when he was telling all his lies and stealing stories, which I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So, like, overall, like, main plot things, like, I did really enjoy it. More so than I thought I would, because I think the professor had said that it was his least favorite book, I think, in the series. I think he had said that last time.
I think it might be mine as well.
It might be yours too.
Yeah.
Like, and so I was expecting to honestly to not like it, but I was like, oh, it's fine. Like it was fine. It like I said, I felt it did enough, and had enough interesting things in it that the weaker parts I felt were compensated enough for, if that makes sense. Like, I really
dislike it.
Yeah.
Just, the scope of the other books. It's
right.
The weakest for me.
Yeah.
I like Professor's theory though about Gilderoy.
Doer has to know that there's a curse in the position. I feel like he got hired just to screw with him. Yeah, that's a thing that that little Yum Yum mentioned to me about. I don't know if it's. I can't remember if she said it was specifically stated in the books, but that or if it was a fan theory that there's a curse on the position.
It's pretty well discussed in the book, like theorized that Snape wants it every year, but he'll never get it, and there's always something with that position. Yeah.
But like I said, I liked Lockhart for all his blustery, very obvious lying, but again, that I attribute a lot of that to me just imagining Kenneth Branagh in my head, being his ridiculously handsome self. So
I can't remember what I thought of that character before seeing the movie, but I think it's pretty accurate.
Because we then watched the movie after I finished the book, and I'd seen all the movies already, and same thing. I don't know what I would have thought without seeing it, since I had seen it before I read the book anyway. But he definitely, I feel like, overshadowed whatever the book role would have meant to me. So yeah. Okay, so things that you didn't like about the Drawing of Three? Like, do you have any things specific you're like?
I have one for sure.
Okay.
I mean, some of it's again it's Stephen King.
Sure.
Every once in a while, there's just going to be something super gory.
Oh yeah.
Super detailed.
that's his MO.
Now I'm trying to remember what section it was that I started to write the note, and I was like, you know what? No, I don't want to remember that. So I don't think I ended up actually. I said, talk about a brutal way to die for Jack, because he's the one that got really taken by the Lobstrosities.
Yeah.
Which, Lobstrosity is my new favorite word.
Oh, it's a great word.
So yeah, but that's Stephen King. I expect it. I
Hmm.
expect some gore. Um, one of the things that I didn't like that's a plot point would be how fast that Eddie and Odetta fell in love.
Oh yeah, okay,
It's like Eddie sees her and he's like, "Oh, I'm in love with her."
okay. I can,
Like they
yeah,
have
I
a
can see that.
conversation that we're not into because he fills her in with everything, but by the end of that conversation, he's already yeah, he's already in love with her.
Yeah. I actually I forgot about that, but yeah, I do remember that now that you mention it. Yeah, I do remember that being a really quick thing.
And
Yeah.
I know it's mentioned that there's obviously something special about Odetta because even Roland is like you could fall in love with her, and there's another thing that
Hmm.
like you could fall in love with her. So there's obviously something that he's putting in here about her being special. But
Right.
even then, it was like you just met the girl. Like
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I kind of forgot that till you mentioned, but yeah, I do remember that. I do remember thinking that it was really quick.
it's instant.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she's got
Um,
that Kavorka. I guess I don't know. It happens,
something,
right?
some sort of charisma.
I mean, like if I were in the same room as ScarJo, I mean, like I mean, it'd be like that. So
Well,
I mean, I'm just
I
saying. I'm
guess
just
so.
saying.
I guess
I mean,
so.
it wouldn't be reciprocated, but it'd be definitely one way. I mean, like, hey, hang on a second here.
Yeah, but in this case, it is reciprocated. Like
No, that's
Odetta
true.
falls
That's
for
true.
him
It is
too.
reciprocated.
So it's
I don't remember if that gets elaborated on more or not.
probably not. I don't think it's something
I
that
don't know.
it doesn't feel like something that's going to get explained. It's just something that you feel like you have to accept.
Yeah, yeah, that is definitely like one of those just go with it moments, which is something that always bothers me in books and in movies. Um,
Yeah.
just that was completely off topic. That was something that bothered me about Wonder Woman 1984. Was there was a lot of go with it moments, and I'm like, yeah, no, you gotta explain some things here to me. Um,
I haven't seen it, so.
yeah. I mean, it's you don't need to watch it. You know.
But the other thing that I didn't like, which is just kind of a thing with the times of when the book was written versus when I'm reading it now, was kind of some of Detta's character and some
Hmm.
of the speech he used for Detta's character.
Oh yeah,
Just a little jarring,
yeah.
which I know it was the time and I know it's also Stephen King, but kind of hard to read some of that in modern times, which I'm not
So,
going to get too far into it if you haven't. Maybe you can vocalize it better than me.
no, I'm not gonna do that.
Well,
But
no, not specifically, but
no. So, but that actually that is something that will come to light more of
okay.
why she's like that as the books go on, though. So that is
Okay.
something that I think that even if he wrote it now, it would still be in there because it's something that is part of her character that will make more sense as time goes on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just a. You'll see.
Okay.
Um, at least I think you will. Like I remember, because I remember the same thing when I was reading. I was like, "Ooh, I don't know about
They did
this."
mention in the
So,
book Eddie and Roland have a conversation about how that speech seems like it's being put on. So
yeah,
I could see that coming back up later on.
yeah,
Like the hint to it.
yeah. And like I said, as the books go on, there'll be more. I think there'll be a little more in that.
Okay.
But that'll make a
Those
little
were
more
really the
sense.
only two things that I can
Okay,
think of right now. Everything else I really liked.
okay, that's good. I mean, that's good that you liked it. Otherwise, it'd be real hard to go on to book three.
Yeah.
So I got like pages of things I didn't like. No, I actually have a few things myself. I already mentioned Dobby. I don't like Dobby.
Yeah, I can't
Just,
blame you.
just don't like him, um, at all.
I
um,
do want to say, just brace yourself
he's in there
because,
more.
well, yes,
Yeah.
but the books have a lot more house elf stuff than the movies because there's just not enough time for house elves in the movies. So just get ready. There's a lot more house elf. There's a
That
whole subplot with
there's a
Hermione.
subplot.
There's a subplot with Hermione and the house elves and freeing
Oh
the
no.
elves. So that's not in the movies at all.
Well,
Get
okay.
ready.
Maybe I'll like
Yeah.
the other house elves. Maybe I just don't like Dobby.
Yeah, they're more general. It's not Dobby. Yeah, Dobby is the.
Dobby and Creature and Winky and
Yep.
what? Oh, they have
Those
such
are
terrible
all
names
three.
too.
Those are three house elf characters.
Those are terrible names. And she's usually so good with names, but I'm like, nah. Oh, and welcome back, Clara.
So just get ready.
All right, cool.
Brace yourself.
All right, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. It's just reading it. I can always read through those sections quickly. So one thing I didn't like, which was sort of a plot thing, and this is something that that it bothers me a lot in any book or story when this happens. You'll like Creature, he's grumpy, perfect. Creature's my kind of dude. Not that I'm grumpy, but I'm not grumpy. I like to think of myself as cantankerous, and there's a difference.
Creature, I would say, same.
Yeah, all right. Does Roland himself enter our world in the second book? I don't think he does that. Does he?
Yes.
Oh no, he does.
Yes.
That's how he gets to Eddie. Right? Yeah. That's right. Because I remember they have the gunfight and Eddie's naked. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. And Roland's like, any guy that can fight while he's naked is probably pretty good. And it's like, all right. And like, that's a fair point. Okay, something else I didn't like, which was, and this was a plot thing, was, and it was at the end. Overall, here's the thing. I think that the final battle with the Basilisk was really well done. I really liked it. I liked the way it was written. It had a good, interesting pace to it, and it had enough of tension to it that you're like, oh, that everyone's gonna be fine because it's of course, but
second book.
yeah, it's the second book. But it has enough tension in there that you're like, oh, something could happen though that maybe I don't expect. Not somebody dying, but like something else could happen. Who knows? But the one thing I didn't like about it is how Fox the Phoenix just knew where to go, and that the Sorting Hat just had a sword inside of it. That's just Deus Ex Machina right now, because it's not explained beforehand that the Sorting Hat also happens to have hammer space inside of it, that it can just hide a whole sword in it. So while that could be something that could be dealt with later, within this book, I feel like that wasn't earned by setting it up earlier in the book, because there's a pretty standard rule that like Fox is at least sort of set up because we meet Fox beforehand and with the whole thing with like Phoenix Tears and all that stuff like that. But right. The Sorting Hat having the sword in it, and then Fox just knowing how to get there. It's like, well, if Fox knows how to get there, there's one of two things here. Either Fox is sentient and knows where the Chamber of Secrets is and then should be telling other people when all these kids are getting petrified, or someone tells Fox where to go and then therefore they know where the Chamber of Secrets is and maybe they should have gone there before all these kids got petrified. So there's just something there. I'm like, something's not adding up. Something's not adding up here.
So let me make an argument for that.
Okay.
The Fox thing, it's debatable. But since you just said someone sent Fox there, Dumbledore could have easily, because Dumbledore, as you'll find in later books, he's not one to really intervene himself that often. He will if he has to.
Sure.
But he could have sent Fox. Just saying.
I mean, I'm not saying that he couldn't have, but if he could have, he really should have been not letting these kids get petrified. I should have been opening this thing a lot earlier. Therefore, I'm like, maybe they do need to, if that's the case, maybe they do need to remove his headmaster, because that is definitely childhood endangerment, and I'd have to let the professor know so he can go investigate it.
Oh, just wait.
So
Dumbledore likes to put those kids in danger.
It was just a moment of, I'm like, that's really convenient that he knew how to get there and that this hat had a sword in it. I'm like, okay. And then, something else, that also...
Hogwarts is very unsafe.
Yeah, it is a very unsafe school. I guess that's a fair point. I asked that because there's a scene where Roland has a fruit punch drink and it's fuel, but it struck with me being so funny. It was like the most amazing thing he'd ever experienced. Pretty lost.
The sugar.
It's the sugar. That's right. That is one of the few things that they touched on in the movie. I
think it's Pepsi,
funny.
Actually.
I think you're right. I think it might have been Pepsi.
I think it's Pepsi that he has.
Yeah.
And he loses. He has a hot dog and the Pepsi, and he's losing his mind over the Pepsi.
That's right. Phoenix feather cord wand. So okay, he can hone in on a phoenix feather. I mean, I guess I'd accept that explanation, but again, then it needs to be. You need to set it up beforehand so it can get paid off in the final act. Like that's just a standard rule. Thanks for the follow, Felipe. Felipe, I'll tell you the same thing I tell everyone else that follows me. I love you. Not like that, but like a friend.
People. I mean, he's got Wizarding World of Harry Potter in his name.
That's true. That's a good point. And then, all right, there was something else that it didn't bother me, but it was just something where I'll get around to it. Okay, so Tom Riddle wanted to purge the school of all purebloods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, but he's not.
No, not purebloods.
Of what then? Oh,
Mudblood.
of Mudbloods. Right. That's what I meant. But he's not a pureblood.
Correct.
So that doesn't add up. Now here's the thing. Does it happen in real life? Absolutely. Like, are there plenty of white supremacists that aren't actually white? Of course. Like,
that's exactly the point,
was Hitler? Like, no, of course not. I just expect a little. I expect a little more consistency out of my fiction than I do from reality.
No, it's an exact reference essentially to Hitler. It's the same idea.
No, I mean, like I said, I got that. It's just one of those things where I'm like,
That's how it really is. That's how it is.
I know that's how. I know that's how it really is. I'm not saying real life isn't like that. I'm saying I just like consistency in my fiction. That's where I said it's not something that bothered me. I'm like, all right. Guess we're doing this, which again is totally fine.
Amanda's here with the backup.
Harry showed loyalty to Dumbledore, which is why Fox and the hat came to Harry, and then only a true Gryffindor can pull the sword from the hat. This will come back in later books, but only show itself true Gryffindor in times of bravery. It's just a fun play. I'm pulling something out of a hat with it. No, I got that. no, I totally got that. I'm just saying it was very convenient, and it wasn't really set up beforehand. So like to have that payoff and have it work and not be Deus Ex Machina, you have to set it up in the first act, and it wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. If you've read more of the books and whatnot, then maybe it is. But for me, it's not set up enough as someone who I know next to nothing about Harry Potter except that butterbeer is delicious. And I know, like but yeah. So again, I totally got that, and but it's like even if they had at some point had like this isn't the payoff. No, but it has to be a payoff in the book. No, it has to be a payoff in the book, though. You see,
it will be. She's saying you're not there yet.
No, but see, that's in a later book. You can't. The act system doesn't work like that because this is its own. While this is part of the overarching structure of the overarching story, within this set itself, there has to be the payoff. There has to be the setup and the payoff in this structure too. Otherwise, again, it just feels like Deus Ex Machina. Because if you don't know, like, it just, I don't know. But that's just me. I like it set up that way because that's a traditional story structure, but not everybody is like that. And again, if you've read all of them, then it may lead more for you. But
and that's the thing about Harry Potter is I think it becomes more enjoyable the more you read because you start getting more and more payoffs. You get more setup and then more payoff in later books. She does that a lot. Where you get a setup in the second book, doesn't pay off till the fifth or sixth book. So just get used to that because that's definitely one of her styles that I love because it's so nice. Like, you don't realize why something's happening when you're reading it, and then all of a sudden fifth or sixth book you're like, oh my gosh, that's why that was there, and it really pays off later on.
No, and again, I get that. Yep. I'm just saying,
so you're allowed to have your moment.
No, I know.
I'm this book, but she's just saying, it's going to pay off again later on.
I have no doubt that it will. Again, it's just for my personal taste, traditional story structure you would have, even though this is a separate act in the overarching story within its contained story, the setup and the payoff should happen in the same structure. It'd be like, it's like in, for good examples like Back to the Future. The first Back to the Future is considered a perfect screenplay, right? Because you have setups in the first act that get paid off in the third act. It'd be like if you didn't have the setup of like the skateboard incident, right? In the, showing that Marty skateboards, and all of a sudden in the second and third act, he's, skateboarding around Biff, and then it's like, but wait, we didn't know he could skateboard. Even though if you do that, and then in the second movie he does it again, it's like, well, yeah, that's a payoff from the first movie, but you still need the setup and the payoff from the first movie, its own contained story, even though then you get a second payoff again. I don't know. It's just one of those things. It was one of those things I'm like, this feels a little too convenient for me right now. But that's just me.
Yep.
Those are the only things that and again, like, even that wasn't something that it wasn't anything that bothered me. I was like,
It's just like where, for me, Odetta and Eddie falling in love so fast. It's like, where'd this come from?
Right. Why? No, it's exactly the same thing. Yeah, there's no setup, but you're getting the payoff without a setup. It's the exact same thing, yeah. Just like you were saying that the girl in the Dark Tower book speaks in a certain way, and you understand in later books. Yeah, I guess so, but like, that's not a setup and payoff though. That's just a character thing. that, I mean, even if you didn't get it explained why she talks that way, like let's say she died in this book, it wouldn't. It's not an important plot element.
Plot point in this.
It's
book.
just it's a characteristic.
Yeah.
So, but I get what you're saying. It's similar enough that I get what you're saying.
Oh, I just realized in my notes I have for Professor. I have Roland's reaction to Pepsi. I feel the same about Coke Zero.
Oh yeah. I could go for a Coke Zero right now. But that's okay. Okay, things I really liked about the book. Well, I already talked about him, but I do like Lockhart. But again, I attribute most of that to Kenneth Branagh. I also really liked the beginning, middle, the time spent at the Weasley's house. I love that whole thing of the way his family is. I really like that. I liked that it was. I like that it was showing that, you know, going from the Dursleys, who arguably have money, to the Weasleys' house, who don't have money, but the Weasleys' house is much more fun. There's a lot more love in that house. I really liked that a lot. I thought that was really well done. And again, I felt that the overall plot was much stronger than
Yes, Clara.
Winchester Cottagecore. That's what's up. I felt the overall plot was stronger. It didn't follow it's still formulaic to an extent. It didn't follow just the hero's story that like the first book did. So there was more. Yeah. There was more elements going on in it that you couldn't really plan for. That I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Like I really liked the stuff with what's the big spider's name?
Caradog.
That's it. I really liked that. Like that was really fun. And just the whole thing with Tom Riddle's diary, I really liked that. I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of get like the villain in there, which I felt was done better than how it was done in the first book, where he was like on the back of what's his name's head and everything and whatnot. I thought that was really good. And also like Hermione being petrified, because then she shut up for half the book. So that's pretty good. No, I'm kidding. I wrote in here, I literally wrote Hermione being petrified and then in parentheses joking. So just because I had to make that joke. So
what did you think of Hagrid's story? Because you haven't mentioned that at all.
Oh, so that was something that I liked it, but I guess it was something I was like, why didn't Hagrid just tell him? You know what I mean? And I'm hoping that as the books go on, because I know there's because I don't remember the movies doing this super well. And if they did, have to go see your next talk. Bye bye, Kit Kat. Thanks for stopping by. And I don't know if the movies did it, because I can't remember if they ever explain more so if they explain why Hagrid can't be a wizard and can't do magic. I don't remember the movies explaining it super well. Whereas I feel like this is already giving a better backstory on that than the movies ever did. Because I don't I remembered like the giant spider scene in the movie, but I didn't remember that Hagrid had anything to do with it. Then we watched the movie again. I was like, oh yeah, I guess it does do that. But I guess I never really just picked up on all of it when watching the movie. Whereas with the book, I picked up on a lot more. So, and I like Hagrid's character a lot. So,
yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts of the second book, is just kind of getting more into Hagrid's story.
Okay, yeah, I like him a lot, and I like him in the books too. I mean, the movies quite a bit. Yeah, I like. I can't remember the actor's name, but I like him.
I can't either.
And the drawing of the three is, I can't remember if it's this one or the next one, and I won't give anything away. But is there a very specific scene with a demon in this book? It might be in the third book. You would know what I was talking about if there was, so there wasn't. Okay.
No.
When it happens, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. Robbie Coltrane, there you go. That's his name. It's a good name.
Yeah, no, this has Eddie, Odetta, and then the pusher guy, which I can't remember what his actual name was.
I don't remember either.
Jack Mort.
Okay.
But we haven't talked about that yet. We haven't really talked about Jack. That was... So obviously you get the biggest section on Eddie, and then kind of a smaller section on Odetta. And then I was like, oh wow, there's still another person we have to get, and the book's almost done. Mm-hmm. But then when you get to Jack, you understand why, and it's because his story is not only tied to Odetta, but also tied to Jake from the first book.
Yep.
And so my question is, because in the book, Roland enters Jack's body as he's getting ready to push Jake in front of a car. He's been stalking Jake for like 2 weeks,
Right.
getting ready to push him, hence
Yep.
the pusher. And Roland stops him. So
Correct.
Jake survives.
Mhm.
We know in the first book that the man in black is the one that pushes Jake. So by Roland saving Jake,
Yep.
is that why the man in black had to come and push Jake, because he had to die in order to get on the timeline? Or is this now separate, Jake's living and didn't get pushed at all? Don't spoil anything. But
Oh, that's gonna make it tricky.
will this come back up?
Yes.
Or do I just... Okay.
It will come back up, and I think it'll come back up in the very next book. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah. You won't have to
I
wait
was like,
long.
wait, does that mean Jake's just living and he never meets? Like,
Yeah. You won't have to wait.
What's up?
A good way, I think, to think about it, and I don't feel like this spoils anything at all. I think a good way to think about it is that it's something that Jake says in the first book. There are many worlds than these, and I think that's a good way to think about it, and it'll kind of. Yeah. But yeah, you'll right in the next book, because even though this book is called The Drawing of the Three, this one and the second book, this one and the third book are super connected. Like I feel like they could have been just one big long book. But obviously that would have been insane because it'd been like a 1,000-page book.
Yes, that next one's pretty hefty.
Yeah. They only go up from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll get that payoff you'll get that explanation pretty quick.
That whole last section was so well written, which I haven't talked about yet, but this book is so much easier to read than the first one.
Definitely.
You can absolutely tell. I think there was 5 years between them, if not longer, and you can absolutely tell that Stephen King's gotten to be a better writer in the time period. Much easier to read. Just you can tell he's matured, and that last whole section is so fun to read. Him basically saving Jake, and then figuring out that this is the guy that pushed Odetta in front of the subway train, but he's also the same guy that dropped the brick on her when she was a child. Like, what? So he's the reason like all of this has happened, and then Roland essentially pushes him in front of the train himself and then bails out, so he gets to die the same way. It's fantastic. No, he's not a great guy.
He's not a great guy. That's right, Professor. I was really trying to think of any demons in Harry Potter. Does he mean Dementors? Those are later. You're supposed to know this. No, I was not talking. I was not talking about Harry Potter when I was talking about the demons. And there'll be some very specific demons that'll come up throughout the Dark Tower series that you'll run into.
Two references that I enjoyed. One, he references The Shining.
Yep.
In his own book.
Yep. He's really good at that.
Yeah. So Eddie, I think it's Eddie, that references The Shining. I don't remember who does, but I put it in my notes somewhere. And then the other one I enjoyed was, again, that whole final chapter where Roland is stealing the gun and like surprising the cops and doing the whole sequence, and then the cops are later describing him as the Terminator. That's right, yeah. Fantastic. When they saw the movie, they just were like, oh my god, it's him. Yeah, I'm trying to... Yeah, it's like you said, that second book is definitely... You can tell he's grown a lot as a writer. And there's a lot of comedy in it. There's a lot of funny moments. Like the other note I took, obviously I love the Lobstrosities, and I love the name, and the fact that it's used the entire book. It's not just like a one-off. That's literally their name, is the Lobstrosities. It's a great name. But another one that made me laugh at the very beginning is when Roland takes over Eddie's body and he's on the plane and he's starving. So he gets the Tudor fish. Oh, yeah, sandwich. Yeah, Roland's misunderstanding of words, the whole book had me laughing the whole time, but Tudor fish was a favorite. It's really fun, some of the wordplay. Similar like what
Rowling does, because she's also really good at that wordplay thing too. I think that's why I like her writing so much, because it very similar to Stephen King. She's really good at wordplay and coming up with interesting names for stuff that doesn't exist. And I'm honestly like I'm envious of that. I'm like, how did you make up that name? It's so perfect, like. Because when you read like her description of it and then what the name is, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I would call it. That's amazing. That's a skill that not a lot of people have. And then his ability to do wordplay with dialects and the way people talk, I think, is unmatched by by any other writer I've ever read anyway. So, Whomping Willow, yeah, exactly. That's a great example, Clara. One of the cops has a heart attack during the Terminator movie. Oh,
yeah, that's what it was.
That's right.
He's watching the movie and has a heart attack because he recognizes like the robotic.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask, what did you? We kind of talked about this privately, but what did you picture the Lobstrosities as when you read it?
I'm pretty sure I just pictured them as like big lobsters. Like I just pictured like exactly that, just a lobster but bigger. And then I remember you telling me, like, I think you put in part of the description. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, it's got like pinchers and green guts.
Yeah.
And, like very bug like description when he kills the first one. So I was thinking like a praying mantis lobster combo of some sort. I was also picturing them much larger, and later in the book when he describes them, I forget what he describes them as, but they're not that big.
No, I
was picturing like giants.
No, I think they're supposed to be probably like the size of like a small to medium sized dog. Is kind of what I imagine, right? Yeah. Because when they come on, he's like passed out on the beach, right? At first.
Yeah.
Right, and then he if I remember, he tries to shoot them, but because the surface washed up, it's wetted some of the powder, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's part of the whole book is he has
no bullets.
Oh, that was another favorite part, was when he goes into the gun store and he's getting all the ammo and he's just like, wait, what? I can buy that much? For how much?
Like, I'll take it.
Yes, I will take all of them, please. And just kind of comparing some of the worlds where he was so shocked by how paper is everywhere.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And paper is gold.
Yeah, because that
amount of gold in his world.
Yeah, because I think it's in book 4 when there's like a flashback to when he's younger and stuff, and I think they do talk more about some of that stuff about like they're not really being books and stuff like that as prevalent as like we have them and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, probably something like that, Felipe. Except for really, really deadly.
Blast-ended scroots? What is a blast-ended scroot?
It's a Harry Potter creature. You'll come across it eventually.
All right. I'm picking up what you're putting down, Felipe. So one question I have, and it's bothered me, and it's not about this book specifically, it's about the series as a whole, and maybe, I don't know, Felipe or someone else who, I don't know, who can answer this for me in a way that, it's not anything important, it's such a silly thing that every time I'm like, why is it that? So when they go to the train station and they go to the Wizarding World, they go to platform 9 3/4. Why isn't it just platform 9 1/2 if it's between 9 and 10? Like, why is it 9 3/4? Is there a reason? Like, I don't know. It just bothers me. I'm like, it's between. It's just 9 1/2. I don't know. I mean, this is something I think
is more quirky.
I guess so. I don't know. It's just something every time I read it, I'm like, why is it 9 3/4? It should be 9 1/2. And
yeah, see,
it's more quirky. All right, I guess I have to. That's the same thing that. So Fly Little Yum Yum's reason was always that it sounds better in a British accent because of the way they say quarters. That's always been her reason, and
I think she's on something.
I'm like, I guess so, but
I think she's onto something.
I don't know. That's the only other question that I had. And again, that's bothered me since I saw the movies the first time. I was like, why isn't it 9 1/2? Maybe it's seasonal. I don't think it's seasonal.
So when you read The Drawing of the Three, and Roland was telling Eddie like multiple times, just don't give Odetta the gun. Don't give Odetta the gun. don't give Odetta the gun. Were you also yelling at him when he finally gave Odetta the gun?
Of course
As we
I
all knew he
was. I
going
was like,
to?
what are you doing, man? Like, Roland
I literally
told
have in
you.
caps. Don't give Odetta the gun.
Roland's one of those guys. I'm like, I think I'm just gonna do what he says, because I'd be terrified of him.
Yeah.
Like, all the time. He seems like a very intense fellow.
I know you're in love with Odetta, so I don't know if someone hasn't read the book. Odetta and Detta are in the same body, but they're two personalities. And so Odetta is the nice, lovely one that Eddie's in love with, and Detta is like terrible, crazy, awful. And so Roland doesn't want Eddie to give Odetta the gun because he knows she might turn back into Detta.
Right.
Sure enough, guess what happens?
Guess what happens? That's exactly right. Yeah.
Eddie gives her the gun, and she becomes Detta. And then the whole last scene is that whole battle.
Yeah.
Monstrosities and Eddie, poor Eddie, tied up.
Oh, Eddie. A thing that I remember, and I'll credit the professor with this, is when they were, even though the movie is not good, when they were casting the movie and they first cast Idris Elba as Roland. At the time, they hadn't expanded on what any of the plot was going to be. And I remember saying to the professor, I said, I love Idris Elba, and I think he is a great idea for Roland. I said, but the only issue I have with it is that Detta often calls Roland honky and other
It's true.
and other names. Although I don't find honky offensive, I find honky hilarious. If someone called me honky, all I'd be able to do is laugh at them. And I said, I don't like. How are they going to be able to capture that? And he says, but remember, like Detta hates everything though. So it wouldn't matter. She would just call him something else. And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. She is just a hateful, evil thing. And then after that, I was like, oh yeah, all right, I'm okay with it now. It doesn't really bother me,
Right.
at all. But I remember, very vivid descriptions of Roland's anatomy. Yeah. Confession that Diagon Alley and Nocturne Alley were pun names completely escaped me until a few years ago. I felt immensely unclever. Well, it's all right, buddy. We don't all notice everything right away. Diagon Alley Universal Studios theme park. They also have Horizon Alley. Oh, do they? I guess I never noticed that before. There was something else that I was going to ask, and I didn't write it down because I just thought of it a second ago. I don't remember what it was.
Going back to my notes, make sure I didn't forget anything.
I don't remember what it was now.
I think that's most of my notes that I had for the book that I took.
Okay.
It's always interesting having Roland try to figure out what's happening when he goes into our world and trying to figure out what plastic is or a microwave, and that doesn't get old to me. Just his description.
And it never will. He I don't know where King came up with some of those ideas, but I love all of them. Roland's a character that I fell in love with really quickly, there's something about him that's so I guess like magnetic in a way, which it's interesting when a character has that ability. When it's like it's in a book, I mean, you know what I mean. Yeah. But he's got this magnetism to him that I very much like. I like how oddly serious he is, which I find very fascinating, and that comes up a lot too as the stories.
But then the comedy comes from his thoughts, his reaction thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny to us. He's not funny, but it's funny to us, his reaction and just his thoughts. His interpretations. So, since you just watched the movie,
yep,
were there any glaring differences for you for book versus movie? Okay. I haven't watched the movie in forever, so.
Roland doesn't have a great sense of humor. No,
Well,
it's not. He's not
I
like
mean,
he's not yucking
he
it
might
up
in
with
his
like.
world,
Yeah, he's not yucking
but he
it
doesn't
up with
understand our humor.
exactly. He's not yucking it up with jokes. It's more like you said. It's his reactions to things because he's so serious about not about like trying to figure them out and understand that it's so silly to us. We're like, what do you mean you don't get it, man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Eddie tries to joke with him, and it's just like,
It does
like all the
not
time.
pick it up at all. Neither does Harry. Yeah, that's true. Harry also
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
have.
true.
He also doesn't tell a lot of jokes. He's not. I'd say. I mean, Ron is definitely the
I
comic
mean,
relief.
he's kind of had a rough childhood.
He has had a
So,
rough childhood. Oh, the beginning of that. The beginning of it when they've got him like when it's like they're having the Dursleys are having over the clients over. I don't remember their name for like the dinner party. And I think this might actually be the reason why like I don't like Dobby. Because I
oh,
feel
it's so
like
rough.
Dobby maybe should have gone about this a different way rather than just getting him into so much trouble with these people that are already horrible to him.
Yeah.
And I also I'm like this isn't gonna make them want him to stay around. If anything, this is gonna them just not want him there at all. Like I feel like this is counterintuitive, Dobby, you fool. Because he drops a is because in the I can't remember. So that's something that happens different in the book than the way it happens in the movie. I think
Okay.
in the movie he drops the cake on the wife's head, and in the book it just gets dropped on the floor, I think, and gets ruined, like the
Okay.
dessert that his aunt has made. I may have those flipped around though. I can't remember which way was which, but I feel like the movie drops it on her head.
I feel like that would be a movie thing to do. Like
Yeah,
that's more of
because
a
you want to
movie
see,
moment.
yeah, you want to see it
Yeah.
more. Yeah,
That's way more drastic.
Yeah, exactly. So, but a big thing that I remember a difference is that the ghosts have a much bigger part in the book than they do in the movie, and I really like the ghosts. Like I like going to his is it his birthday party? Headless Nick's birthday party? It's some kind of party.
It's just
Oh,
weird.
it's his death day party, maybe. Some party for nearly
Yeah.
Headless Nick, and movies drop on the head of Uncle Bert, his boss. There we go. Okay, yeah, it is a movie that's the one on the head. Thank you, Felipe. But I really liked the ghosts in the book, and I'm like, oh, they should like this would have been really fun to have in the movie. You know, of course, in movies they have to things for time and stuff like
Time.
that. But I really liked it. I liked how he wanted like they won't like the ghosts that actually had their heads cut off won't let him join the club or whatever because he's only nearly headless and stuff, and it seems so petty, but also I found it so funny that these ghosts even in death are still so petty about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that seems pretty accurate though.
I do love little moments like that.
Yeah, and then with
Yeah.
Peeves the poltergeist, like I love Peeves, and then yeah, gatekeeping ghosts. What a bunch of jerks. Oh, but something that I found interesting watching the movie. Okay, and this was something that that we looked up because we were curious about it. And so, Moaning Myrtle in the movie has one of the most annoying voices I've ever heard in my life.
Yes.
And I didn't. It's funny, even though I knew that's what she sounded, and I remembered that when I read the book, I didn't read her voice that way.
Oh, good.
Right, I didn't read it that way. But I know. But there's a really interesting reason why though, and I know. And it's because of a real life fact. So, like in that movie, Daniel Radcliffe is like I don't know. He's probably like 14 years old when they made that movie, maybe even younger than that.
Probably even younger. I think.
Yeah, but the lady that plays Moaning Myrtle, she's like
yeah.
28 or something like that,
I
and
think
it makes
she's
it.
maybe even older than that.
You
Because
could be right.
here's the thing. The first movie I ever saw her in was Bridget Jones' Diary, and she plays one of
Yeah.
Bridget Jones' friends.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So she's probably I would want to look that up, but I think she's even
Go
much
ahead
older
and
than
look it
that.
up because
I want to say she was like 40.
it's so weird that she's so much older, and like in the book, it's very obvious that Moaning Myrtle has like a crush on Harry because everybody falls in love with Harry, which good for Harry. And so when reading the book, because I'm imagining just her, because I think I said it last time, like I don't really imagine the way they look in the way they look in the movies doesn't too much influence the way I view them in my head
Right.
when I'm reading it. So like I just imagine her as another like younger kid because she's supposed to be like Carrie's age, just stuck in ghost form. But like watching
Yeah,
the movie, it's like it is obvious she is like an adult woman, and the way she does this voice because I think she's trying to sound more like what a kid would sound like maybe. And I'm like, this is just weird. I don't like this at all. And then, like, there's that... It's not as obvious in the movie as it is in the book that she has a crush on Harry. So it's this really weird thing of being like, this adult woman has got a crush on this 12-year-old kid. And it's like, I don't know about all this. It was very... it made me feel weird.
Moaning Myrtle, the character, was supposed to be 14 years old.
Okay, there we go.
So a little bit older than Harry.
Yeah, but not a crazy amount. Yeah.
The actress is currently 55 years old. And when did Chamber of Secrets come out?
Hang on, it would have been like 2003?
2002, right?
2002 or 3? Because we went and saw it. Because we went and saw it in the movie theater together.
Yes,
so
we did.
That would have been 2002 or 03. There we go. So that was
So she was born in 65.
Yeah, so she would have been in her 30s.
Oh, there you go. She was almost 40.
Ugh.
She was basically my age.
It's weird and it's creepy and it's like, couldn't you? I'm like, you couldn't find a kid? You couldn't find like a kid?
I remember that casting and being very confused by it because I knew her from Bridget Jones and I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's a good point, Claire. Minus a year for post-production.
I know she looks young, but...
So she was still like 37, but still though.
Yeah, she was like 36. She was my age. Playing 14.
So weird. Could you imagine yourself being cast in a movie and like, we're going to have you play a 14-year-old. And you're like, you're going to have me do what? Oh, and you're going to kind of have this weird, like, flirty relationship with a kid who actually is 14. And then you were like, I'm going to do what now? I think I'm going to go to jail.
I don't understand that casting for sure.
So I'm like, I don't really remember her in any other movies. Like I've seen Bridget Jones's Diary once, but I don't really remember her in it. So I don't know if she just always sounds like that, or I feel like she's doing.
Bit, yep.
Really?
Oh. No, that's pretty much her voice in Harry.
They should have not cast that. Like they should have not done that.
It's not as annoying because she's not trying to put on a little child character. Right. But it's pretty much the same pitch. Fun fact, if you don't know it, if you go into the bathrooms in, not Diagon Alley, in Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
The bathrooms in Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
You hear Moaning Myrtle.
Yeah, I do. I actually do remember that. That was. I remember that the first time we went there. I think was before I had seen all the movies, but I'd seen the first two, and so I do remember that. And then since having gone there, I've seen all the movies, but I do remember.
I'll give you that, Felipe, that mentally she's been there for years and years and years, so she would be mentally older.
Oh, that's a good point.
Physically, she would still look 14.
Right.
But yeah, I guess it's still. Then it goes back into a little bit of creepy.
I guess so, but I mean, she's a ghost, though. I don't know. I guess it depends on the rules.
I don't think she ever really moved past her teenage.
Like, I don't know how the rules work when you're a ghost, because I've never been one. But that is a good point, though. But it's still very creepy for sure. That she has a crush on Harry.
Oh, just wait. You've seen the movie. Your favorite movie is the fourth one with Moaning Myrtle and Harry Potter in the bathtub. So.
I mean, it's true. That is my favorite of the movies. But it's okay. So, but a funny thing is, so like, I remember the first movie pretty good, and I remember the second movie because I've seen it the most. Because I've seen it twice, I think, or maybe 3 times. Okay.
Well, more than because
I've seen it more than one time. All the other ones, I don't really remember them. So I'm actually kind of excited to get to the third book. Because I don't remember anything that other than like glimpses of like things from the final movie and like the final battle between Harry and Voldemort and everything and whatnot. I don't really remember any of the plot points at all. Whereas with these two, I remember the basic overall plot structure. But the rest of them, like the next one's a Prisoner of Azkaban. I couldn't tell you a thing that happens at all.
I'm so happy for you because I do like the movie. Prisoner of Azkaban, but they changed too much from the book. So I'm really glad that you don't remember the movie because you're going to read the book and then you're going to watch the movie and you're going to see how different they are.
Okay.
That one's, I really like it for the most part, but it's my favorite book, so I'm the most protective of it.
Okay. I'm genuinely I'm excited to read this next because, whereas with these two, I wasn't, like, I was excited to read them, but not as much because I'm like, I remember what happens. But with this one, I'm like, I couldn't tell you, like, I remember, like, very minor things. Like, I remember, that, the one guy, like, there's something about him and, like, there's something to do with, like, a werewolf thing, but I don't know if that's a next book or further books. And
It's
then
this book.
that's okay. And then I remember, like, other brief things, but most of them I don't know where they fall into the structure of which is when and where. And they're really, like, they're just like images in my head of, like, a scene in the movie, but it has no context. So I don't know, like, so I'm Jim, like, I'm like, oh, it's like reading it's like brand new, whereas these two didn't feel as brand new. So,
and like Felipe said, this is where and I've said this to you before, book 3 is where they start cutting more and more and more for time.
Well, they start getting exponentially longer with the third book, right?
Yeah. And they get more and more involved with more and more subplots, so more gets cut. So third book is where I'm, like, excited for you to start reading, because that's where it really kicks off versus the movies.
And an added double POV punching of Malfoy. All right, I'm okay with that.
I love the plot of the third book. I'm so excited for you
I
to read that
very
one,
much dislike the Malfoys very much. A great deal. They're just kind of jerks, and I'm like, nah. So yeah. I'm very much looking forward to it. Something I feel like we should do, and we should do it with all of chat, because I think it'd be fun, is after you finish all 7 books, we should have a Discord viewing of the movie, so you can see how terrible it is.
I'm there for it.
And then we should all watch it together in a Discord viewing. I would buy it, and I have no desire to own it, but I would buy it so we could do that.
That'd be fun,
because it would be that much fun, I think.
That'd be fun.
Because there are these, like, after you, if you like the series as a whole, which, look,
I mean,
there are people that read it.
Sure I will.
Here's the thing, though. I know people that have read the whole series, and they're like, I didn't like it. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't like it? They're like, I didn't like it. And then I say to them, well, why did you finish reading it? And they're like, well.
They don't like any of it, and they just read the whole thing, or they didn't
like
the ending?
They didn't. The last book can be a little controversial. Not specifically in the way it ends, but in certain plot elements that happen.
Okay.
And yeah, the professor's right. There is a warning there's a warning from Stephen King telling you, like, hey, you maybe don't want to read anymore. And look, everybody just ignores it and reads it. And that's okay.
I feel like the warning's in this book. There's a warning in this book.
There probably is. He does that. I think this is his, and I've read most of his stuff. This series is his most fourth wall breaking series. Like, he breaks the fourth wall pretty kindly and talks directly to you reading it. Like, I mean, like, this is where he started coining the phrase of, constant reader and stuff like that. And he's talking to you directly, like, reading it. Which I really like that, because you have to finish it and you can never take it back. That's exactly right.
As long as it doesn't go full Game of Thrones, I'm fine.
No. Like, I love the way everything goes. I love it.
I'm fine.
But I like I said, I know people that don't, and it's not because the overall. They're just their plot elements in the 7th book that some people are like, that's too. I think it was just too. I think avant-garde is a good way to describe it, and if you don't like that, then you're like, but I like that a lot. I really like that.
I trust your taste.
So, thanks. I try. I get pretty good taste when it comes to books for the most part, and I think I'm pretty good at knowing what people like and won't like. Like, they're like a friend of mine at work. Like, for instance, I would not recommend that she read the Dark Tower series, because I'm like, she would not like it. But then there are other books that I've read that she would like. Like, I worked with this girl, Jen, years ago, at a previous job, and she was asking for book recommendations, and I just read the Dark Tower series, and I was like, she won't like that, but she'll like this other book that I read, called The Great Santini. She read that and she loved it. And I was like, yeah, because I think I'm pretty good at that. And, like, I think you'll like where the book ends up, where the story ends up.
I love this one, so I'm excited to take the 3rd one.
The 5th book is my favorite. I'm really excited for when you get to the 5th book. Right. The 5th book is my favorite. Still a ways to go, but it's and the third book's also really good too.
I'm excited to start it.
3 and 5 are really solid. 3 and 5 are really solid. Yeah, the Game of Thrones books are good. I have accepted. I don't think we're going to get that story finished. I don't expect there to be a resolution ever. And I didn't watch past the 3rd season of the show because I didn't. But the books are very good. The books are very good. I'll have to check out the Dark Tower. So only read the Mr. Mercedes books by Stephen King. The Mr. Mercedes books are very different than the Dark Tower series. I like the Mr. Mercedes books. They're very good. I like all his stuff, so I'm heavily biased. But the Dark Tower thing is my favorite thing that he's ever written, for sure.
I'm 2 books in, but I'm enjoying it so far, Felipe. So
Yeah.
I mean, stay tuned.
So all right. So last time you made some predictions of where you thought like things might go. So based upon reading the second book, do you have any changes for any of those predictions, or are you still like, no, I still feel pretty comfortable?
I don't remember what I predicted last time.
I don't remember either, and I don't know where
notes.
Hang on, I have it right here. Let's see.
I
do.
I don't remember what. I'm pretty sure that whatever I predicted, I would not feel the same now because the second book went completely different direction than I was expecting. So,
oh, it's funny. I wrote that Jenny was Ron's sister because I guess I kept forgetting that.
yeah, you forgot.
I forgot that. What else did I write? Let's see. Okay. You know, that's a consistent thing. You same with the Gunslinger, you didn't like the vulgar for the sake of vulgarness, which goes in what you were talking about, like the gory part and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was worse than the first book, I will say. It
Yeah.
was worse than the first and the second. The second, there was a couple just like I've already blocked it from my memory, but I wrote it down with the EMT getting sick.
Yeah.
I blocked it from my memory, but I wrote it down. That was very graphic.
And I remember there's a couple other graphic parts, because it's Stephen King,
Yeah.
but I don't think any of them have as much of it as the first book did. And again, I think that goes into what you and I were talking about, that he definitely grew as a writer,
Matured.
but between the two. Whereas, and even he says that I think in the foreword for the last book he talks about that, or even one of the forwards for one of the books he talks about that, where he's like going back and looking at it, he's like, I can tell for myself that it was written by a very young writer. So even he says that. So, but the one
it didn't feel necessary, and this one just felt more descriptive than
Right.
okay, yeah, I didn't need all that description. The first one was just you didn't need to do any of that.
Yeah. If you do read the Dark Tower series but don't have familiarity with the works of King, it might be helpful to just read Wikipedia summaries of some of his more famous works. It starts to become an interconnected universe. That's true. You'd have a richer experience with understanding with some characters. Yeah, so like books that are connected to it. The Shining, which you already touched on, is connected to it. Hearts in Atlantis is connected to it, especially because the Hearts in Atlantis is 4 novellas that are interconnected themselves, but especially the Low Men and Yellow Coats is connected to it, which is the best one in that. There's one called Dragon Teeth, I think. I might be making that name up wrong. It is connected to it as well, and there's a whole host of others that are, but those are the main ones. And a book series he wrote with Peter Straub called The Black Prism, which is also connected. Salem's Lot is as well. So I think the ones that would be the ones that I remember being most helpful, that if you just read like a quick like Wikipedia summary, would be like Low Men in Yellow Coats, obviously The Shining. You could probably get away with not the It one. I think you don't necessarily need to read that synopsis. If you know it, like, you're fine. And then probably Salem's Lot. Like, those are just like, because there's just some characters and some stuff that gets talked about. You're like, oh, that's what they're talking about.
Bye, Miss Beef.
Bye, Miss Beef. Yeah, and the stand too. That one is probably is very heavily connected as well. Yeah, The Stand.
So apparently, since you mentioned Salem's Lot, I did not realize this, but my mom obviously reads like all of Stephen King. She loves Stephen King. She hasn't read this. She has the first book.
So your mom's cool like that.
I assume she's probably read it already. I gave her the first book. But she also had my grandma read them, and apparently my grandma was very angry with her for having her read Salem's Lot. So she was terrified after reading it and very mad at my mom for making her read Salem's Lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. So Salem's Lot I love the book, and there's never been a good they did a mini series like adaptation of it back in like the late 70s, but it's just goofy. But I thoroughly enjoyed the book, and it's funny. I don't really like vampire books all that much, but Salem's Lot I thoroughly liked.
Apparently, my grandma was not okay with the whole knocking on the windows thing.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, it's funny. I didn't because there's an episode of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror where they heavily use
Yes.
Salem's Lot a lot, and I didn't know that until because I didn't read the book until much later in life, and I didn't know that they were playing on that directly. I didn't know that, and now when I watch it, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so your prediction you made last time
Oh yeah, let's hear this.
was Roland has chased and caught the Man in Black multiple times, and you made that prediction on March 31st, 2021. I wrote the date down.
Right. I still think that's a possibility.
Okay.
I don't know that we'll ever find out, but because we went gone in such a different direction.
Right,
But
right.
I still think that was my only prediction.
That was the only one I wrote down anyway.
Oh, okay.
It's very possible you made other ones, but I didn't write them down. I'm not the
All right,
best
so
note taker.
I still think that's a possibility. Man in Black was pretty much non-existent in this book, so not
Yeah.
really anything to report there.
Okay.
I think I also talked about maybe not a prediction, but wanting to know more about Roland's world, and I was more
That's right.
thinking that we were all on the same timeline, and that his world is our future, and
Yeah.
something catastrophic has happened to lead us to now we're basically in the Wild West again. And now I don't know that that's the case. I don't
Sure.
know that necessarily we're on the same timeline. I'm predicting, if you want to write this down,
Hang on, let me get my pen ready.
that it's more so like parallel universes rather
Okay.
than a single timeline. Because obviously there's overlap, because
Yeah.
he knows Hey Jude, he knows some adaptations of our world later on,
Right, right, right.
but I don't know that it's necessarily on the same timeline anymore.
Okay. I'm gonna write down that you are sticking with your other prediction too.
And I don't think I have anything else prediction wise. It's not as this book was much more action. These things are happening in this moment rather than
Yeah.
world building. So I
Yeah.
don't really have any other predictions as far as the Tower or Men in Black or anything like that. It wasn't as philosophical
Yeah.
as the first book.
Yeah, the first book definitely is much more philosophical like that, and that'll kind of come back in the last book a little bit, but not like it was in the first book. But just because it's tying up like all the loose ends, and
Right.
everything like that. So.
And obviously he's still referencing memories of his past that we don't know about yet. So I know we're going to touch on it eventually.
Yeah, yeah. Roland's lived a very interesting
And
life.
I think one thing that came back up for me is when we talked the last time, I was under the impression that Man in Black took over Martin's body, like that, or that he was, not that he took over Martin's body, but that he was like impersonating Martin when he took
Okay.
over and was going after his mom in order to make Roland go through the test early.
Right.
After reading this, I'm thinking more, was it similar where he like walked through the door and took over Martin's mind?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking more.
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember.
Yeah. In the first book, I got the impression that the Man in Black could just shapeshift and make himself look like anyone he wanted to. But
Honestly,
after this
that's
one, I'm
what
like,
that's what I remember.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that is the case. That could just be what I remember. Because I don't remember
my only
for certain. But I
catch
think
on
that's
that
what
is
it
that
is.
in this book, he specifically mentions Walter being in the town and Martin
Yeah.
being in the town separate, and how it.
It's probably different than him just shape shifting. Then like I said, I
Yeah.
honestly don't remember. And
Well,
honestly,
maybe he can do the whole walking through a door and
like
taking over
there
his mind.
and like and the professor you might remember better than I do, but like some of those things don't really get explained. It's
Yeah,
left
which is
for
fine.
you. It's left. Some of it's
Yeah.
left for you to infer it, and
Yeah.
kind of decide for yourself some of it. Because I don't remember specifically. So
Which
I feel like
that's
that may
fine
be
if
one of
that's
those
the
things,
case
but-
for that one. I don't mind that one.
Yeah. Okay. I think that was all.
Do you have any for Harry Potter?
Do I have any
Do you
predictions?
have any?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
any plot points that you saw? They're like, where's this going?
um, hmm. No cheating by knowing the movies.
Yeah,
Damn
exactly.
it! Walt Martin get up to some magic crap. Some gets explained, some doesn't. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Fair.
Well, it's hard to say because again, I don't remember the movie super well.
Which is good.
Yeah,
You
which
can't
is
cheat
good.
that well.
So I can't really cheat. Predictions for where it's gonna go. No, I don't. Honestly, I don't. I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, I'm really bad at predicting where things are gonna go.
Which
Especially
I think
with
is hard in the early Harry Potter books anyway. Like, they're
yeah,
not setting
because
up as much.
yeah,
You'll get there with
because
the next book.
like this one it definitely felt much like the first book. This one felt very self-contained. And it's
Yeah.
like I think we talked about last time. The first book, I think it was done in a way so we're like, oh, if this isn't a hit, it doesn't take off. It's a self-contained story. There's enough to lead into more, but if not, then this might just be a one-off book. And I feel like this one was kind of a similar thing. It's like it needs to have a definitive end, and that's why he stabs the book with the basilisk fang, and it's like, oh, Voldemort's really gonna. Even though it's obvious, he's not.
You know that's coming back because you've seen
yeah.
the movies. I don't know if you remember. But
Yeah. Oh no. Oh yeah. I remember.
that's not the end.
Actually, yeah. Oh no, I remember that. Yeah.
But it could have been the end if that was.
Right. That's the thing is that it could have been, and again, I think it was done specifically to say, like, hey, like if this again to the second book from like brand new author, it's like if it doesn't, then we can just end it here.
Yeah, because I don't remember. I wasn't really involved until the fourth book came out, so I don't remember how long it took for the first book to really take off. So I remember my mom gave me the first book when I was in 8th grade, and it had just come out. Rosie O'Donnell was raving about it on her TV show, so my mom bought it for me.
Hang on, let me Google
and I was
it right
like, that's a kid's book. I'm just gonna put it on my shelf, and it sat on my shelf until I was a sophomore in high school. And then I pulled it out and read it and was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Hang on,
I
let's
read
see.
first, second, third, like in a week. And then the fourth was coming out. So, I mean, that's not that long of a time period. It had to have come out before I was in 8th grade if sophomore year, the fourth book was coming out.
Hang on, let's see
I
here.
remember that.
Let's see. Tiger's gonna be really surprised in the fourth book when Harry becomes an avowed Death Eater and kills Ron. Oh yeah, that will be very surprising.
Plot twist.
Movie also did include Neville transferring houses to Hufflepuff in what was it, his 5th year. Movie completely skipped that part. Wait, what?
What?
Books 1 through 4 were out. Books 1 through 4.
Trolling us? I don't know that.
I mean, she could be. Claire's a pretty good professional troll here in the chat.
I know. That's why I'm like.
Because the way Claire will write things, it's like the way Claire will write things,
Felipe,
like it's very
I know
matter
that.
of fact. There's
Felipe,
a big gap.
I definitely know
between
that
book
because book 4 I was in.
let's
It was like my sophomore year of high school or freshman year of high school that came out, and then book 5 came out while I was in college, like right when I was starting college.
Claire
after
doesn't
that, I
go on.
remember them all. Because then after that, I was going to midnight book releases.
So
But
I'm
I
trying to find out
remember
when it became like super popular.
When the first book actually was published, and like when it went viral.
So the first book was
essentially.
published in '97, but I'm trying to find out when it became a
Okay.
bestseller. Let's see.
I think my mom gave it to me for Christmas 1998. So that's at least a year before it was starting to be talked about. Because
Here we
Christmas
go. Here we
98
go. That's why I have it right here. It looks like the book was the book was published in
U.S.
'97. Won British Book Awards to the Children's Award. The book reached the top of the New York Times best-selling list in '99. So I guess it. I mean, that's still hard to say though because it was published, in the UK first.
Yeah.
But it probably. I mean, it looks like it maybe have taken a little bit of time for it to take off. But here's the thing, I don't even remember knowing that they existed until high school. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would have been normal because the midnight releases and the big craze for them wasn't until we were in high school.
Okay.
that really, I feel like that hit the news for the fourth book when the fourth book came out. That
Okay,
was
I
the
got
news
you.
picked up on it. So it might have been happening for the third book, but
Yeah.
the actual like lines to pick it up started hitting the news on the fourth book.
Hmm. First heard about it in
Ooh,
2000. I worked a midnight book release
I
of
forgot you
The
used to
Tunnels
work at that Barnes and
Burn.
Noble.
The same
I
as some
forgot
intense
about
book
that.
selling. Lie plausibly, tell stories that sound real until you smack them with a punchline. That is the best way to lie. Yeah, the old professor used to work at that Barnes and Noble.
I used to see him at that Barnes and Noble. I forgot about that.
I did too. I used to go in and put books in the wrong place, knowing that he'd have to put them back. No, I never did that. But I thought
Oh,
about it.
you definitely did. You definitely did.
Y'all get trolls who spoil stuff early that night.
I got
Um,
my, I did the midnight release for Deathly Hollow, or no, not Deathly Hollows. That one I did in Inglewood because I was with my mom. But the previous book I did at that Barnes and Noble.
so Clara, I know because Liz, because you told me the story of how you. Which book did you have spoiled for you?
The fifth book,
Yeah, yeah.
Order of the Phoenix.
So things get spoiled,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I didn't know because they hadn't really taken off. Well, I mean, it had already taken off, but I didn't expect the internet wasn't as much of a thing in 2004.
True.
And it wasn't the internet that spoiled it for me. I was literally with my friend in his dorm room and someone messaged him and I saw the message over his shoulder. It wasn't like someone was purposely trying to spoil it for me. They just messaged him because he'd already read it and I saw it. So,
That's
and
somehow
it was,
worse than having
yeah.
someone
So in the
spoil it
later
on
books,
purpose.
every book after that, I bought it, took it home and read it in one, like did not go on the internet until I was done reading because I learned the
Dang.
lesson. So, yeah,
Okay.
wasn't going to let that happen again.
Yeah, you know it's a funny thing. Like unrelated to either of these two book series, but one of the weirdest things where I saw something get spoiled for someone. Oh my god, was I'll never forget this because I saw it happening, and in retrospect, I'm like I should have stopped it, but I didn't. But I remember it was right after The Force Awakens had come out, and so spoilers for Force Awakens, everybody. So Han Solo dies, right? And
Yeah.
I was in. It was like the week after I had seen it, and I was in a local comic book shop here, and there was a guy talking to the clerk, and the guy that was talking to the clerk definitely had some mental handicaps, and so he was just talking, and he started to talk about Star Wars, and then The Force Awakens came up, and I remember the clerk going, he goes, "Hey man, like I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to talk about that." And I remember vividly this guy going, "Oh no, of course I watched, of course I won. I just it really got me when Han Solo died." And the guy goes, "What?" And then he just walked out of the store. I'll never forget that. Oh, I felt so bad for him. I felt so bad for him. And I felt bad for the other guy too, because it's obvious he was not trying to spoil it. He didn't really get that he
Right. He
shouldn't
didn't
talk
know
about it.
better. Yeah.
Um, and oh my god,
Yeah, that's rough.
I saw this happen. I was like,
Why you go
oh,
to a midnight showing
I was like,
or a
oh
7 p.m.
no.
showing?
I felt so bad for this dude. Yeah, that was a rough time. And then I had to go up there and buy comic books from him, and he was so upset. And I was like, I just
Sorry,
want to get
man.
out of here. Um, and then, and again, in retrospect, I'm like, oh, I could have stopped this. I could have intervened myself somehow and changed the subject, but
No.
I didn't. It was like a deer in headlights situation. I was like, oh, yeah, it was a bad time.
Yeah, I missed the Dumbledore dies one because I was not on the internet. I purchased the book and spent the whole
Dumbledore dies? No, I already
weekend
knew that. Oh
spent
no.
the whole weekend reading it in my apartment and then went on the internet once I was done and I saw the posts everyone was doing Dumbledore dies or Snape kills Dumbledore and I was like, "Whew, so glad I'm done."
Hmm. See, Sam also heard about it in 2000. Actually became a fan after movie 1. Started reading books after movie 2. Did all midnight releases since Order of the Phoenix. Someone got a hold of a copy of the book before the official release date. Took pictures, posted the whole thing on the 4chan. Spoiled lots of major details. Ugh. Dumbledore spoiler escape me. Failure Dumbledore. Made no sense in my head because I kept reading it pronounced as Dumbledore. That's hilarious for some reason. I didn't know Harry Potter was a thing at all until I saw the first film in 2001 on a whim, and I went through the first 4 books in 2 weeks. My first exposure to anything Harry Potter was going to see the second movie with you. I'd never really seen or known anything about Harry Potter before that point, and I can honestly tell you that I didn't see or know anything about Harry Potter again until going to Harry Potter World at Universal Studios many years later. I didn't watch any of the other movies. I didn't read any of the books. Nothing. Not because I dislike. I remember liking the movie when we went to go see it together.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing, cat? Quit clawing that couch. But I don't.
And it's so funny that you remember the deal that we made in order to go see it, because I did not remember that whatsoever. Like, I remember going to see the Star Trek movie, but I do not remember that being
no, I remember that
the
deal. Because I remember thinking, I was like, I'm not gonna like this movie. Like, I remember thinking that so much. I was like, man, I don't want to watch this. Because in the arrogance of my youth, I'm like, man, that's a kid's book. Like, I can remember thinking that.
I mean,
and I was
that's
like,
what I thought.
I'm reading things like, you know, at the time I was reading things like Terry Brooks and what's another? I don't know. They're on my bookshelf. I don't remember any others. But like, I was reading things that I consider to be like adult fantasy. I'm like, man, that's a kid's book. And then I saw them. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. But I never followed up on it after that until now. So here we are. See everything full circle.
I'm
always.
Sure I tried to get you to read them. Like, guaranteed I did.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You probably told me. You probably said you would like them, and I probably went, yeah, I probably would, and then didn't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because again, in the arrogance of youth, you're like, nah, I know what I like. But yeah, no, I remember I was like, that's all right, because I want to go see Star Trek, and I'm like, and then I feel like I ended up really winning because I like both movies, so. Which is.
I feel like I like the Star Trek movie.
I don't know. I don't remember if you liked it or not.
I think I did.
I read them all in real time, first release in 98 or 99.
Awesome.
Read all the books that came out. I have an exact memory of finding out they were making the first movie and that Pease wasn't going to be in it. That's really, like, I don't know that there's any series that I've read in real time. Well,
I mean, I read most.
No, not even Game of Thrones, but
I just picked up with the 4th book, so I read it in real time with the rest of it. I just read the first 3 books real fast. Oh, that's neat, Amanda.
Oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's really neat. I'm kind of jealous of that, honestly.
Yeah, because we were older.
Yeah, to get to like experience something like that when you're the age of the characters, I think would be especially fun. You know. Yeah, I'm a little jealous of that.
Yeah, so you're finishing school. Well, no, not really, because then at that point the books took longer to come out. But that was neat at the beginning, when the first few books were right on schedule.
Well, okay, so next book for me is Prisoner of Azkaban. The next book is The Wastelands, I think, for you?
Yes, The Wastelands.
That one's really good. It has one of my favorite, very strange, I guess you could call it a character. When it happens, you'll know. That's all I'll say. But it's a really fun portion of the book, so yeah, I think you'll like it as well.
Well, since there's only, a few people in here, and spoiler alert for Amanda and Felipe, but I'm going to Universal next week, really, and expecting to have quite a bit of pool time, so The Wasteland's going with me for my pool time.
I have to finish another book that I started, and then I'll start the Prisoner of Azkaban, but it's already on my Kindle, so I've got it ready to go, but I need to finish, and I'm almost done with this other book. It's a shorter, just like hard crime novel that I'm a little more than halfway through at this point, so I'll probably finish it up this weekend. So today's Friday? Yeah, today's Friday. So, and then I'll start on that. So it'll be a bit of time before we get to our next Harry Tower episode, but it'll be a good one. There'll be some more meat, I think. Yeah. All right. Well, anything you want to plug, Liz? I know at some point in the future you're going to start streaming, right?
Yes.
That'll be cool.
You heard it here first. Amanda already knows because we talked about it. But yes, I am going to start streaming possibly next week. So I have my channel somewhat set up, so you can follow me. It's Discoliz.
Hang on, I'll drop that link in the chat. Ow.
Amanda's already following me. She's one of my 3 followers.
I am already following you as well.
Mike, Tiger, and Amanda, my 3 followers right now.
That's what's up.
But yeah, so I'm going to start streaming. I'll be doing mostly Nintendo. So starting with Animal Crossing and probably some Pokemon in there. Yeah.
you're not gonna stream like Call of Duty? Like that's what all the cool kids do.
No, I probably will do some Destiny at some
There you
point.
go.
There'll probably be some Destiny on there.
See, look, now you got
Woohoo! Ooh, there's
five.
a mystery
Boom.
fourth person.
That's what's up.
How do you know?
That's what's up.
But yeah, so hence my little setup. I'm getting all ready for it.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
otherwise, Discoliz on Twitter, Discoliz on YouTube.
There you go. All right, coming up on the Tiger Hollywood channel, folks. Sunday night. I don't know what we're gonna stream Sunday night. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. It'll probably end up being Breath of the Wild because it's still such a long journey. What is it? A cooking stream? Maybe a cooking stream. We'll see.
Soon.
People do like the cooking stream. They just require a lot of setup on my part because I have to move this. I have to move this whole studio that no one can see into my kitchen, and it takes a room, and then my wife can't walk through the kitchen, and
but she gets delicious dinner.
I mean, she gets a delicious dinner every night. Okay, I cook almost every night. Not on Fridays. Friday nights are pizza nights. We do need to do a bad movie stream again, Professor.
Yes, you do, because those are really fun.
All right, let's you and I talk. We need to do that. We need to do that soon. We do need to do. We'll have to find a movie. Maybe if we can find a bad movie, maybe we do that Sunday night. That might be a fun thing to do. Anyway, and then next week, Tuesday night, definitely Breath of the Wild again. This week I streamed every night. That's not going to happen a lot. But next week it'll be back to the regular schedule. And then we've started Red Dead Redemption 2 because I, for some reason, have decided to play only long games on this channel. So we'll be picking that up again next Friday as well. So that'll be a good time. And I'm gonna try to do more Tiger Talk episodes a little more regularly. They've been this week we had 2, but then there was a big gap between episode 1 and 2. So I'm gonna try to do a little more consistent. Maybe try to do like them every other week. There'll be times where we have guests, and then times where it's just gonna be me talking about things that annoy me, because I'm very good at that. Coming up, so. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. As I had a wonderful time as always. I love all of you so very much for hanging out in the stream. You all mean a lot to me, and I hope that you trust me as your only source of entertainment. Don't watch anything else ever again. Only me. Maybe Liz when she starts streaming. That might be okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, no problem. And you all have a great weekend. I'll see everybody Sunday night for some kind of stream. I don't know what yet. But you can always check me up. How dare you love me? I love you, buddy. Don't worry. And I update everything over on Twitter. I tweet a lot because that's the only social media that I use regularly. So have a good night, everyone. And I will see everybody next time. Bye-bye.